So, hello everybody, this is the next video in my series of videos on chainsaw chains. Today's video is about semi-chisel chain, which is right here, and the full chisel chain, which is here on top. The difference between semi-chisel chain and full chisel chain is the actual profile of the cutter head. As you can see up here, these have a much sharper cutter head. Oh, there it is. That comes right to a sharp 90-degree angle with a 90-degree corner in it. This provides an actual cutting point, whereas down here, this is semi-chisel, which only has part of a chisel, leading to a rounded over edge, leading to much less of a pronounced point. So, what you may be asking yourself is, why would I go for full chisel or semi-chisel over the other? So, there it is. The main difference between semi-chisel and full chisel chain is full chisel chain is much faster in the cut, usually about 15 to 20% faster, given the same chain, same cutter head, same everything else on the same saw, versus semi-chisel. However, semi-chisel cuts slightly slower, but lasts a lot longer than full chisel. That's due to the rounded corner being more resilient to wear, basically. What kills chains is sand and grit in the wood, wearing down that super sharp point of the semi-chisel chain. That super sharp point is what leads full chisel chain to being so much sharper and cutting so much faster. That point, however, is much more fragile than this point. That's because this doesn't come to an actual sharp point, it comes more to a rounded, sharpened edge, which just leads to a stronger edge with more material supporting it, as it doesn't have that very sharp, fine point right at the end, right there. That's hooking my screwdriver tip. This does have a point, but it's not as sharp, and it's much better supported, as you can see right there, versus right there. Come over to the side, you can see that has a much shallower angle. That has a much sharper angle. Try to get you so you can see both. So this, you can see the rounded edge that comes around. The entire cutter basically is rounded. There's a flat spot up here and there's a flat spot up here. Whereas this comes right flat, and then from the top, it's flat as well. This leads to that very sharp point right there that actually, when properly sharpened, you can actually feel it catch the edge of your hand, and there you go. You can see right at the tip. It will actually cut the meat of your fingernail off. That is why this chain up here cuts so much faster than this chain. That's also the reason this chain is so much more durable in the cut than this chain. So you may be asking yourselves, how do you know when to use full chisel? And how do you know when to use semi-chisel? The answer really comes down to personal preference and your cutting conditions. Most pro loggers I know only run full chisel. They will only run semi-chisel chain in very specific circumstances, such as if they're cutting and bucking skidded logs that have been dragged through the sand or through the mud, which wreaks havoc on these chains because it comes to such a fine point. These chains are much more resilient to sand and dirt in the bark of a tree, but again, you will cut slower. The other main reason people cut with these is these can be turned into square ground chains. These chains cannot. The difference between this and this is very similar to square ground versus round ground, in that this is like regular chain, where it's stronger, it stays sharper longer, but cuts slower. And this is sharper, cuts faster, but wears out faster. That's really, in all honesty, the main differences between them. There's slight differences in certain applications, such as trying to clean up Dutchman, where this comes to such a sharp point. This will actually clean up Dutchman and clean up your face cuts a little bit easier than these, because this doesn't come to a fine point. This tends to want to walk around more than this chain. But those are the main, that's really the only benefit this has over this outside the wear factor. It just comes down to whether or not you want to deal with the issues of this cutting a little bit slower. When I say slower, I don't mean a major difference. Again, 15 to 20% sounds like a lot, but very rarely in a cut would you notice a major difference. These do, however, hold up significantly better to a point where you will notice the difference in wear between these chains and these chains. But that was the main point I wanted to make this video on the differences between these two chains. And that's the same difference between all brands. All brands have a full chisel chain and all brands have a semi-chisel chain. The full chisel chain, again, is a more aggressive chain. Semi-chisel is a more durable chain. There's a reason that this is the only loop of semi-chisel chain I have, and it's as sharp as it is because I very rarely use it. I find that, for me personally, my time is better spent resharpening one of these every little bit more often than dealing with the reduced cutting speed of these, because in most cases I'm cutting clean virgin wood that I'm the one to fall, I'm the one to buck, and I'm the one to move. So I know that there is no actual grit in any of the wood. People who are specifically bucking will tend to like these chains as, again, they hold up better in the sandy conditions. So I'm just trying to get you a slightly different view. Here you go. You can see the top plate comes right to that razor sharp point in the corner. That point is what does about 90 to 95% of your work while cutting. Whereas these chains, there it is. You can see the point actually isn't a point, it's a rounded over edge. These points are much more resilient due to that fact that there isn't that very sharp, very weak point. But this is the video I want to make today, based off of what kinds of chains people run. That is one of the most common questions I see and hear while buying chains is differences between semi-chisel and full chisel chain. But for example, when I was doing a lot more bucking of wood that had been drugged through the mud, that's actually why I have this chain. It's 20-inch loop, which is actually on a bar that wore out because of the amount of grit in the soil. And then pretty much everything else, falling especially, I really like full chisel. There is one other style of chain that I should mention that I don't have and that I very rarely see, and that's carbide chains. Carbide chains are an even stronger version of these, rather than having a all-steel cutter head. From about here forward, they have a piece of carbide that is brazed to the steel of the chain, and it just allows for a much stronger edge. All carbide chains I've personally seen are all semi-chisel. They're all fairly slow to cut because carbide cannot come to as sharp of an edge as even these semi-chisel steel chains. But those chains are by far the longest lasting chains on the market. Those chains are specifically designed for wood processors and people who are cutting in extremely dirty and dusty and muddy conditions. Those chains will actually a lot of times go an entire day without needing to be sharpened. But when you do need to sharpen them, you need specialty files that are diamond coated rather than regular chainsaw files. And that's due to the fact that the carbide is physically harder than steel. And that's the last point I wanted to make on these. Sharpening these and these, you both use the same file, the same style file, doing all the same techniques. The only difference is these, I personally feel every tooth, I feel the point, make sure the point is fully defined, whereas these, it's a lot harder to do. But over time, you can learn what a sharp edge looks like. This has been sharpened, but you can see, hold on, there it is. Right there, that's from most likely hitting a rock. This edge is as sharp as it can be without me filing it all the way back to there. But that's what a dull cutter head would look like. Whereas That one actually is slightly rocked too. Here's a really good example of a perfectly sharpened one. There you go. You can see, perfectly smooth edge all the way up and around. This would be as sharp as you can get these. As you can see, that super sharp point is as sharp as you can get these. But again, about 15 to 20% faster on these, but you get about 15 to 20% longer chain life on these as they hold up better. So it's all in a matter of what you prefer and what you want to run. But thank you guys for watching. Next video should be out tomorrow, and it's going to be about the difference between safety chains, which I don't have out currently, and non-safety chains, which these are. Also the yellow tag versus the green tag steel chains. But that's for tomorrow, so hope everyone has a great night, and hope you guys learn from this series. But have a great night all. Thank you.